welcome to Essentially Sports, the WWE division. So nice to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. When my management team told me about this interview, I was like, oh my goodness, it's finally happening. So I'm very excited. Thank you for having me on.
That's great, and so nice to hear that from you. So before we dive in, I think I think it's pertinent to mention that you're only 16 years old, and it's very difficult to see anyone at 16, wrestling the way that you have recently. And obviously, this being a big year for you, 2023 has been a big year for Izzy. So if you want to tell me a bit about how you got into making your debut and what was it like? Have you been training for a while before that? Yeah, just go on.
Yeah. So the journey into the ring was really, it felt really long to me, honestly. Because I wanted to become a pro wrestler since I was like 8 years old, and I'm like you said, I'm 16 now. So that was pretty much 8 years of waiting, and it was really hard sometimes because I just felt like I was really on the sideline, and I just basically what I did was I did everything besides be a pro wrestler that I could to make myself better. So I was a manager at one point. I did the whole broadcasting thing. I was a timekeeper. I've been commentating. I was a ring. I've done so much besides be a pro wrestler. So when the time came about thinking about when I wanted to have my debut, I would say last year was really when I started to kind of put it together. I was kind of silently plotting what I would do and how everything would. And this is really important. So I was like, my social media, my brand is Izzy Mania, to be a total rebrand and basically be kind of like the Izzy Moreno empire. So it's funny how it all happened because I was on Busted Open. I forgot when. I know I was promoting something and I was going to be on with Dave LaGreca and Thunder Rosa. And I knew that I really wanted to debut with Mission Pro, which is an independent company out of San Antonio, Texas, for those who don't know. It's an all-women's company too. And so I knew I really wanted to have my debut at Mission Pro. And I was like, I should mention something, me wanting to go to Mission Pro. Maybe they'll strike up a conversation. So as we're on the air, I mentioned something about bringing up for my debut for 2023. And before I could mention anything about Mission Pro, Thunder Rosa goes, does that mean you're going to debut at Mission Pro? And I was like, I was going to say it, but you said it for me, so I guess it's meant to be. And it really was. From there, me and Thunder, we kept in close contact. And we really just kind of planned it out really perfectly. And my debut was everything that I wanted. For those who don't know, I had my pro wrestling debut on August 12th of 2023. I faced Jasmine Allure, and it was really perfect. And it was just such a perfect way to kick off, my career, basically.
Yeah, it was a great debut, no doubt about that. And you mentioned Thunder Rosa, and it's honestly, having a big name like that to kind of mentor you in your early days. That's got to be special because not a lot of people get that kind of opportunity to rub shoulders with her and to sort of pick her brain about professional wrestling in general and how she's been in the ring and the outside part of it as well, because it's not just the in-ring ability but also a lot of the other stuff as well. So former AEW Women's World Champion, she's done a lot in the indie circuit as well. So how did that come about, and how cool was it for you to be able to pick her brain about things?
Oh man, it's really awesome just to literally have someone like Thunder in my life. Never in a million years would I think I would be, kind of working for Thunder and working for her. Really awesome feeling. It's also very honoring. And me and Thunder, I would say we kind of connected years ago when I actually interviewed her for a show I used to have called The Hot Side with Izzy. And I interviewed her, and me and her, we just we followed each other, and we just sometimes I'd reply and sometimes she'd reply my stuff. And like I said, when I was on Busted Open, I was like, okay, I have to mention Mission Pro because this is the place I want to be. And I think what's so awesome about Mission Pro is that it is an all-women's company. Also, they try to not be the normal indie company. They really try to go above and beyond to be something different, something that's a fresh breath of air, basically. And I think that's really awesome about Mission Pro. And I honestly feel so safe because when I was sort of planning my debut, I was like, the pro wrestling world, it can be very cutthroat. So when I was planning this all out, I was like, man, I really want to be in a place where I'm going to be safe and I don't feel like I have to like guard myself. And like, that's not the case at all with Mission Pro. Everybody's very welcoming there, and especially Thunder. Like, it's been really, really awesome just to have her. And, we went out to dinner like 2 weeks ago, right before Mission Pro Wrestling Silver Bells 3, and we were just talking about 2024 and the plans for 2024. And it's like, honestly, like Mission Pro, like next year is going to be really special for Mission Pro, and I really can't wait for everyone to see what they have in store. I'm really excited for next year. So yeah, Mission Pro is awesome, and Thunder is I'm really grateful to have her in my life.
That's amazing. So just going back a little bit, you mentioned about how you've done so much outside the ring before you've actually got into the ring, and you're just a teenager at the moment. So it seems like you've got all this experience, but you're only 16, so you've got a long career ahead of you. And if you wanted to, you could be anything but a professional wrestler as well, right? Because you've done so much. But how important is that for not just for you, but for anyone who's trying to enter the business? Because we talk about grinding your teeth, doing the things outside of the actual wrestling side of things, the dirty work, so to speak, setting up the ring, taking it down, things like that, being a referee. What does that teach you, and how important is it in the growth of any professional wrestler?
Yeah, I think it really is super important, and I think I really learned that firsthand, and I think I can speak pretty good to that, because I was somebody that really, I hate the term pay your dues, but that's honestly what I did. I was setting up the ring, but I would do so much more than just showing up super early and setting up the ring. Like, I would legitimately make sure, like, whatever they needed, like a company needed to do, like I was able to do. So, like I said, I was a manager at one point. When I was like 10, I was managing people, and like I was just like this brat kid, and I was just super mean on the microphone. And then I started broadcasting, and then that built up a really good reputation. So then it went into being a commentator here and there, and then ring announcing, and then I was the timekeeper at one point earlier this year. So, I think it was really important for me to get good at all these other things, because I knew when I was going to get in the ring, when I was actually going to start my pro wrestling career, I knew I was going to be really good. But I think for me, it was like, okay, if plans fall through, let's say, God forbid I have an injury or anything, I can rely on that other stuff. So, I would say I'm pretty good at doing broadcasting, and it's something I really have gotten good at throughout the years. So, if plans fall through with injury, I'll just start broadcasting stuff, and we'll restart the hot tag with Izzy. And then the other part is, I just really wanted to get good at everything. Like, honestly, like I just, and a lot of people don't know this, but sort of the main reason why I started the hot tag was that so I can get good in front of a camera, because I knew, one day down the line, I'm going to have to be in front of a camera. I'm going to have to cut a promo in front of a camera. And I think all those times where I had to do a million takes of previewing an AEW or NXT show, it's now gotten me to a one-take promo that is really good. So I think doing everything else besides be a pro wrestler was super important for me. And I ask people, try to think of yourself not just as a pro wrestler, but as a business person or businessman or woman. And that's really what I did is, I'm trying to create like a lot of opportunities for myself. And that's what, doing everything else did for me.
That's amazing. And just going back to how it started for you in the mainstream, so to speak, with the NXT stuff. And I just wanna understand from you, because being a fan of professional wrestling, is it like a lot of times we think something's storyline or kayfabe's the word, but oftentimes it comes from something that's very real as well. So talk about this experience with being a Bayley Superfan. Was it something that came to you as an opportunity from, say, WWE guys or NXT, or was it just you were passionate about, you loved Bayley in general, and that's something that translated onto screen? How did that go? How did that happen? What went on?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of people think I was this plant, and I was hired and this and that, and honestly, it was super organic. I started to attend NXT shows, and I remember kind of like my first interaction with Bayley, and this was like literally the chain of events. And I was standing by the guardrail waiting for the show to happen. And I guess she took a picture of me from behind. And it was like me just like, it was my back and it was like just me waiting. And she wrote, "This is why I love what I do." She posted it to Twitter. And this like couple came up to us and they're like, "Hey, did you see one of the NXT Superstars posted it?" And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And, before I didn't really know what Twitter was. And I was like, "Oh, cool. And then Bayley came out that night and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is my girl. I was like, I adore her. And there was just something about Bayley that was so different than all the other divas at the time, women's wrestlers. And I absolutely loved her. Like, I loved how colorful and energetic she was. And I really related to that because, whenever I was at school, like, I was just like a really like happy kid. Like, I was just like super excited. Like, whenever we go to pee, like, I'd be running around on the playground. Like, I just felt myself relating to Bayley so much, and she was just so different, and I felt myself in that way. So I think that night she gave me her headband, and then after that I was like, I need Bayley merchandise. So it started off with me making my own merch. So I got these custom shirts that say Bayley's biggest fan with like a picture of her. And then when they came out with like the official Bayley merch, I was like, I'm about to drop some money. So literally, like, I like begged my parents to get me the I'm the Hugger shirt. So we got that. And then like I was like, man, I have long brown hair too. Like, I should start putting my hair in a side ponytail. And that's what I started to do. And then, I think people started to catch on with, me sitting front row. And because we would just buy tickets and, we'd get them front row. So we were like, oh, we want the best seat. And I guess like whenever she'd come up to me, people were like, oh, who's this girl that she's constantly hugging? And then, it turned into the whole, Bayley and Sasha, and then Sasha taking my headband. So yeah, it was all very organic. I still get the question where it's like, oh, like, did you know? Like, were you in on it? And honestly, no, like, I was just I really was just a fan. And like, I guess I was the lucky one. I don't know. It's like, it's really cool. And I love telling people how it all happened. Because it really is just so organic. But I think what's so cool about it for me, and I just have to go to this in, I gotta toot my own horn, is that like I feel like I'm having these full circle moments as I'm a pro wrestler now. So, I think, it was my debut. Somebody put this picture side by side. It was Bayley giving me her headband at an NXT show. And then it was me giving, I have these like Izzy Moreno towels. It was me giving my towel to this little girl, and the pictures are so similar. It's a little weird. I'm like, oh my God, I was like, something's going on. But yeah, it's really cool to have these type of full circle moments, because I knew when I was younger and I was sharing those moments with Bayley, I was like, man, I really want to do that one day and have that type of relationship with other little kids. And like the fact that I'm doing it, I'm like, what? I'm like, 8-year-old, he was onto something.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment. I remember watching NXT those days, and obviously Bayley versus Sasha Banks was like the big rivalry at the time, and you were a big part of that as well. And I think for you that must have been incredibly special as well, because there were signs that NXT at the time was doing something special. And I think a lot of the guys who were in the Performance Center as well probably knew that, but there wasn't like that bubble was about to burst very quickly, and it was then taken to the next level with this women's evolution thing and all of that stuff, and how you were a small part of that, but like just overall talking about the women in NXT and how they've gone on to do such great things. Bayley, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, of course, now, and all the others who were there, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, they've all done such incredible things. And do you feel somewhere that it's paved the path for young wrestlers like you to start getting those opportunities now?
1000%. I really think like if it wasn't for the women's revolution, like I don't think women's wrestling would be where it is today. And I think it's in a really special spot right now. Selfishly, I'm like, man, I wish they would have saved some of those like first times for like this current generation. Sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had like the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. That's just me being selfish. But in all seriousness, I really do think it did pave the way for women's wrestling now. I think, when the whole women's evolution was starting, I feel like, women's wrestlers weren't really taken serious until, the Becky Lynches, the Mercedes Monets, the Charlotte Flairs, the Baileys, and all the other women part of the WWE roster. And, just women in general who were a part of women's wrestling. I think if it wasn't for them, like people like me and like other girls, whether it's at Mission Pro or other companies, I don't really think, we'd have that many opportunities. Like, I don't even like maybe there wouldn't be a Mission Pro if it wasn't for those people that paved this path for us. So I really think, yes, I really do think they paved the path for where women's wrestling is today. And it's something I'm really grateful for because, you know, I can, you know, wake up and be like, oh, I'm wrestling this weekend. And, you know, I definitely have to give credit to those women years ago who paved the way.
You know, while you were speaking, I was just thinking that, you know, what you did as a Bayley Superfan, it kind of makes sense as well with Bayley's career, because she was technically a Superfan and she was a kid as well, right? And she kind of had that crazy kind of wrestling fandom at your age. So it almost comes full circle as well in that sense that she, you know, recognized that here was someone who was extremely passionate about the business, and it made total sense that, you know, you were the girl coming out with the ideas for the t-shirts and, you know, the side ponytail and doing all of that stuff, looking like Bayley, but also making your own personality as well, because you had a start with that, but then you took it on to the next level and made it great as well. So you know, so like, did you continue having conversations with Bayley even after the whole NXT thing was done, and do you speak to her even now?
I'm trying to think, because, you know, once she went to the main roster, you know, like, I've never really, it wasn't like, I have her phone number and you just call her up and be like, hey girl. And, you know, after when she went up to the main roster, you know, everybody was like, oh, Izzy's gonna travel with her, like, imagine how funny that's gonna be. And I was like, yeah, that'd be really funny. And it honestly never happened. I remember there was a Raw in Tampa, which was very close to me at the time, and we went there, and that was like the first time I saw her, and I was like so excited and like happy to see her. And then, like, you know, we just like never really like talked anymore, but I mean that in like the best way possible. I don't mean that in like oh, she stopped talking to me, like, honestly. And then, like, sometimes she would respond here and there to some of my stuff, but I don't think I've ever told the story, and I think it's finally time that I do. It was the pandemic. She sent me this like message on Twitter randomly, and she's like, hey, I want to send you something. What's your address? And I said, yeah. I gave her my address, and he was like, okay. She's like, I don't know when I have time to ship it, but like, just be on the lookout. And I was like, yeah. And so, you know, like, months went by, I didn't get anything, and then she's so sorry, but I just sent it. And I was like, okay. So it came in my mail, and it was actually, I can't believe I never told the story. I'm so glad I finally am. And it was actually the gear that she wore when me and her went into the ring together. So it's like that silver, blue, and yellow gear. I remember it very well, but also it's because I have it. But yeah, it's the silver, blue, and yellow gear that she wore when me and her went in the ring together. And I was like, oh my God. And she wrote this super nice letter, and I was like, holy crap. Flash forward to this year, where when I was planning out my gear, I remember I was like, you know, I really want to wear pants, because I love pants, and I was like, you know, I feel like I'd look really good in the pants, and like, you know, it's top, and like, I feel like it just be me. And I was like, I really like kind of the cut of her gear, so I tried it on. It fit like a glove somehow, some way, and I was like, okay, this is a sign. And I was like, okay, I really like the cut of the pants, and I was like, the top I'll change up a little bit. And literally, when I gave it to my gear designers, they basically cut like my whole gear, like my first ever gear, based off of that Bayley silver gear. And it's like, it's really cool. And it's like, honestly, like my tiny little wink. I hate saying tiny little wink, but like, honestly, it's like my wink to her. And then I remember, like, so I got the gear, and then I ran into her at NXT one time. We were standing in line waiting to go inside, and I saw this like car drive by, and it looked just like it stopped, and she got out, and I was like, oh my God. And she was like, hey. And so we were talking, and it was during the pandemic, and we got a picture together. But yeah, and then also, I remember she commented on my gear reveal, and she wrote something really sweet. And so that was like, honestly, I got very teary-eyed when she wrote that. I was like, oh my God. I was like, and this is like days before my debut, so I was like, it's all finally happening. But yeah, Bayley is just like truly somebody so special in my life. Like, honestly, like, I think if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would really know what true love is, and that's through pro wrestling. Like I said, like, she was my first ever favorite wrestler, and I think she still is. Like she was like really the reason why I was like, oh man, this is why I want to do this, and this is why I do what I do. So yeah, I say that, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of contradicting her, because she wrote that tweet about me. So I'm like, yeah, this is why I do what I do.
That's amazing. Such a nice story as well, and thank you for sharing that. I just want to know, at the time with NXT, I know you were a young kid, but Triple H was in charge. Did you get a chance to meet him as well by any chance? Did you get a chance to meet any of the other wrestlers as well?
Oh yeah, I met like honestly like whenever I would go to NXT when I was younger, I met a crap ton of people. Like oh my goodness, but Triple H specifically, I'm like, have I ever told the story? I really don't know. I remember like he was like backstage, but like you could still see he was like in the alley and like all the fans could see him in the roofs waving at him. And so I waved at like I was waving at him, and then he called me over, and I was like, oh okay. I was like, wow. And so I got a picture of him. It's like the cutest picture ever too. And then at the time they came out with the NXT book, and I had a really good friend of mine who worked very closely with him, and he gifted me this book that Triple H signed and wrote like the sweetest message in, and I was like, oh my god, like I almost passed out on the floor. And then I think there was this other time, it was at one of the WrestleManias that he walked out like during WrestleCon, or not WrestleCon, WrestleMania Access, and he was saying hey to everybody, and I like to be like in that little like mosh pit around Triple H. He was like, oh, everybody, it's Izzy. And then we took like the picture. That picture specifically is so adorable because it's very tight, but it's so cute. But yeah, I have met Triple H. And then I've met other NXT superstars. But yeah, like those NXT days, like for me, like those are a big part of my childhood, which is really awesome to say. Like I remember like going to NXT, at the time it was filmed every month. So yeah, I remember going to NXT every month and just having a blast and like meeting my heroes and like people who I really looked up to. Like those NXT days were the best.
That's so sweet. And speaking of Triple H, of course, like that's someone who I grew up watching as well. But of course for you it was maybe a slightly different generation. But when you started watching wrestling, who were the guys, like who did you look up to? Because obviously there was Rock and Stone Cold and those guys, but maybe that was probably a little before your time. So who did you start kind of like looking at and say, okay, this is of course Bayley's one of them, but like who else when you started watching wrestling you were like, yeah, that's my person?
Yeah, so when I started to watch wrestling, like I had no idea about NXT, and at the time when I started to watch wrestling, it was actually called FTW, which I later actually started to attend, who's like super close to my house. But like at the time I was like 3, so like honestly John Cena as well, like that's a definite. As far as females, it was always Paige and AJ Bayley. Like I think those were like my main 2. But yeah, like I would say those 4 were like my favorites, like right when I got into wrestling, because I first just turned it on and I was like, okay, what is this? And I just got really into it. And then like I started to like catch up on like the names and like who they are and like how it worked. But like the number one rule when I started to watch wrestling, my parents, they were like, listen, like this stuff is really cool, but like you can't do it at school. And I was like, yeah, I won't. And I never did. But I was always like, man, I should just like body slam somebody.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the guys you mentioned were of course kind of trailblazers of their own time. But talking about your own kind of wrestling interest, I understand your family's pretty into wrestling now as well, right? And your dad's of course been part of this as well. Has what role has he played in your life to try and get you into wrestling full time as well? Because I believe there was a pretty interesting bump you took. So you want to tell us a bit about that?
Which part, my dad or the bump?
A bit of both, maybe.
Let me start off with the bump because that's pretty quick. Yeah, so like I was lightly training at the time, and then like the idea of me having like my first match ever came about, and I was like, you're gonna take a choke slam, and I was like, okay, cool. And I was like super down with it. I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. And I was fine. I know a lot of people were like, oh my god, she's too young and she's not gonna grow and her bones are gonna look like that forever, and she's gonna be like look like an 8-year-old forever. That wasn't the case. I am a growing young woman. But that, like, honestly, that moment, like, that match was super special for me. Not just the match alone, but everything that happened afterwards. What at the time, it wasn't very good for me, because I did get a lot of backlash about it. And personally, it was hard to be 10 and, like, have to see the things that people wrote about you, whether it was just random people, random fans, or literal people that you trade with and looked up to. It was very difficult. But I look back at the time and I am super glad that happened to me. Because, I just my confidence grew after that. And looking where I am today, and then I was very insecure when I was 10. And 16, Izzy Moreno is really confident in herself and is really proud of the person she is, and she doesn't really care what people think about her. But yeah, I am super happy that moment happened, and I'm very grateful that those people did write what they said about me, because they made me stronger. Not to sound cliche here. Moving on to my dad. Oh my goodness. First off, both of my parents have always been super, super, super supportive about my career. They've always been one, as I got older, when it was kind of time to figure out what I actually wanted to do, not just say I want to be a princess or whatever. I think when it was time to say literally what I wanted to do with my life, they said to me, they're like, listen, we support you whatever you want to do, whether you want to be an astronaut, a doctor, whatever. And I told them I wanted to be pro wrestler, and they're like, okay, we're gonna be all in, we're gonna do this to the best of our abilities. And that's what my parents really did. I think they truly have sacrificed so much for me. And it's not just it's a lot of behind the scenes what they've sacrificed. And I am really grateful for them. They've put everything on the line for this dream. I mean, my parents, they're willing to uproot their lives so I can go train in Texas. And they also they travel with me for all of my bookings. So they pause their life for a weekend or two, and not spend the weekend at home and have to spend the weekend in a hotel. They're super supportive. But mostly my dad is specifically, and I'm not saying my mom is always been so supportive, but specifically my dad, because he was always I don't know how to explain it, but he was very listen, we're gonna make this happen. And I was heck yeah. He was my motivator, honestly. And he has seen, I truly think he's seen every stage of my career, whether where I started just lifting tires in my backyard when I was 8 to where I am today. He's seen everything, and he really is everything to me. He's my coach, he's my chef, my Uber driver, my cameraman. He literally is everything for me. So it's when I had my debut, I have this picture that my friend got of my parents when I was making my entrance, and their faces are so funny because my mom is sobbing, and then my dad is just looking at the camera I told you so, she was gonna be good. And it's the funniest thing. So yeah, my parents have been super supportive, and I'm so lucky to have them in my life, legit. So mom and dad, if you're watching this, hello, and thank you for everything.
That's so sweet, Izzy. And just because I'm gonna have to wrap up soon, so can you, if you tell me that Izzy at 16 now, you're doing what you're doing at MPW and doing really, really well, what's next for you? Because the world's your oyster, you're doing really well. It's not just in the ring but outside as well. You're super committed. I see the work you're doing in terms of media, in terms of everything else to make yourself not just a good performer inside the ring, but also incredible outside, and doing all the right things, making all the right noises. We've seen, I'll give you the example of Nick Wayne at AEW, got signed when he was 17, 18 years old. What's next for you? Is that the pathway you want to see yourself go? AEW, WWE, is that where you see yourself in the next few years?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely want to be signed when I'm 18, and I already have the plan, the blueprint to how I'm going to get there and what I'm going to be doing. And I really am excited because I turned 17 in May of next year, and we're officially a year away from me being 18 and to me being able to get signed, which is really crazy, honestly. As this year is, years approaching, I'm oh my God, it's almost time. And this is almost like the Olympics. People train for the Olympics for their entire life, and I'm okay, the time is almost here, and I'm not ready for this. I say that, but honestly, I really do feel I'm ready. I feel we have a long way to go, but my entire life, so I'm just I'm really excited. But I'm enjoying the moment, enjoying my career right now. I know it's going to grow, which I'm so excited for, and ready to see, the future and what next year holds, because next year is going to be really awesome. But what's kind of next, honestly, just taking booking. I'm really excited to help to Texas next year for about a year. which I'm a little bit. But yeah, I'm moving to Texas for a year after I graduate high school, which I'm very excited about. Get out of high school. But yeah, like I'm super excited for the next few years. It's, you know, all of it is kind of all hitting me like slowly, and it's like, wow, so much time. You know, at the end of the year, I'm gonna sit down with my parents and kind of map out everything because things are looking big next year about. So yeah.
So we're gonna have, you know, I think I hear it on Raw and SmackDown all the time. The hottest free agent, CM Punk. We're gonna have the hottest free agent, Izzy Moreno, coming out very soon. You know, so looking forward to it. I'm sure.
Listen,
I'm sure you're gonna do great stuff.
listen, CM Punk is my favorite wrestler. CM Punk is my favorite wrestler, so I can't.
The t-shirt I'm wearing.
CM Punk is my favorite wrestler, so like I legit can't. Yeah, I saw and I was like, oh my god, I love it. But he's legit like my favorite male wrestler. Like I think it hit me when he returned to WWE, and I was like, see, I've always been such a big fan of him, and then when I really like him, and I was like it was like he's like the one wrestler like I still get excited for. Like his promos, I'm like, oh my. But yeah, I love CM Punk. So yeah, he is like definitely the hottest free agent, and like I'm not trying to compete with him, but when I hit 18, I think I'll take that title.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy to give it to you as well, because he's a changed man now, from what I understand. But that's this has been great, Izzy. Thank you so much for doing this, and it's been so much fun chatting. Looking forward to seeing where you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to see where you end up very soon, and hopefully we can stay in touch and give you the kind of media coverage that you deserve, because you've been doing truly amazing in the last few months that you've debuted and just taken it up a notch. And yeah, so good luck, Izzy, and yeah, I'm sure you'll kill it.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Likewise, it's been really fun for us as well. All right.